there's a scene where the Apache's firing and it's all going a bit nuts, and that would inevitably get me rocking as we watched it. And but I thought it was kind of helpful because the cadets could see that I was discomforted by it, and then I could talk to them about why, and then give them a really good kind of introduction to what happens with PTSD and mental health awareness and all that sort of stuff. So I took it and made a positive out of it.
Fascinating.
So that worked quite well, I think.
Yeah.
And just to go back to Afghanistan, I mean, it was a very brave thing that you did in trying to get those Afghan people out. I also have fond memories of Officer Cadet Shah and others, and I think that they remain eternally grateful. But at that particular moment when Kabul was falling to Taliban forces, there didn't seem to be a plan in place, and so people like you had to step into the gap. Why do you think that coalitions like US-led coalition in Afghanistan, Western coalitions generally really seem to be behind in trying to understand the pace of the complex security environments they find themselves in?
I think it's just a lack of strategic thinking. I think people are so tied into domestic issues, politicians tied into domestic issues and domestic agendas that they just don't think, and they're out of practice thinking long-term sort of strategy when it comes to conflict. I mean, if you look at what the British have done since 1945, it's all been relatively short interventions that haven't needed a huge enduring commitment and a really clever long-term strategy to work through it. Afghanistan was 20 years. There was a totally different kind of cabinet in the UK, a totally different defence staff. Probably all the senior civil servants are turned over from start to finish, and yet there's no campaign continuity through all those things, and we're just not institutionally set up to fight campaigns for that long. And I think there's also a really good argument that the longer a campaign goes on, the more kind of chaos comes into it, and the harder it becomes to put that strategy together. We were talking just before this about how Israel are now in mission creep, strategic drift. They don't have a clearly articulated end state, and it's because the IDF is set up for raids. They're set up for short in, smash out. They're not set up for 2-3 year occupations, which is why I think this plan they've got is particularly terrible. But it's not just the British and Americans that do it. I think it's a common cognitive failing of military planners that they're not great at doing multi-year, multi-generational campaigns like that, and maybe no one ever could be. I think is potentially the other point to make. Is it beyond human ability to keep that in check as it goes through?
Space, isn't it? It's from one conflict to another, and the dynamics, the cultural nuances, it just plays a massive factor. We're jumping from sort of Afghanistan, and we're starting to touch on the Middle East now. You've kind of made that transition out, or it's been made for you to some extent, and you are fundamentally then find yourself back in academia, and you're on this sort of journey of what sort of next on the sort of conflict sort of scale, and you've immersed yourself into a new conflict in a different way, but with eyes sort of wide open from your previous experiences. What is that like? What's that really like for you?
It's quite satisfying because I think one of the key things to do when you leave the army is look at what your skill set is, and where you can best apply that to something you're interested in. Because it's not about Queen or King and country anymore. It's about you and your future and where your life's going to go until that moment you hit retirement. So you have to work out what gets you out of bed in the morning. And it's not company orders, it's not company detail anymore. It's internalised motivation. So I think you have to find the thing that is on the sweet spot. And look, I'm interested in conflict and strategy because I fought in a conflict that had a terrible strategy, and I've always been really interested in unpacking why that went so badly, and hopefully putting stuff on paper that might stop future deployments going that badly as well. If anyone ever reads it, but at least you can get it down and apply that thinking. And I've got a unique skill set. I've worked at a very high level tactically in the army. I'm lucky enough that I served on the Herricks that gave me the experiences I have, and then I've got degrees in law, war studies, psychology, and that's a quite unusual package, I think.